The smell hit me first. Chemical, sharp, wrong for a Tuesday morning. I stood in our kitchen doorway, watching Tessa sweep my appointment letters into the sink. 5 printed pages. 5 interviews I'd earned after years of grinding through unpaid internships and night classes in urban architectural design. She didn't look at me as she pulled the lighter fluid from under the sink. The same bottle we used for summer barbecues. Her hand was steady as she squeezed it over the papers, soaking them until they turned translucent. "Tessa, what are you doing?" She struck the match. The sound was louder than it should have been. Everything slowed down as she dropped it. Flames burst upward, bright orange against our white sink. The papers curled and blackened. "I'm done waiting for you to become worth something," she said, her voice flat and cold. She grabbed the overnight bag I hadn't noticed by the door. Walked past me. The front door opened, then closed. Just like that. 13 years of marriage ended while my future burned in the kitchen sink. I stood there frozen, watching smoke curl toward the ceiling. That was the morning my life ended. And the day I finally saw who she really was. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My name is Wesley Grant. I'm 41 years old, though I felt about 60 that morning. For as long as I could remember, I believed hard work would pay off eventually. My parents taught me that. Work hard, stay humble, trust the process. I'd spent 7 years in community college while working construction jobs. Then 2 more years finishing my degree at night while Tessa worked as a receptionist at a dental office. She used to bring me dinner when I studied late. Used to say she was proud of me. After graduation, the market was brutal. Architecture firms wanted experience I didn't have. I took internships that paid nothing. Volunteered for city projects just to build a portfolio. Worked as a draftsman for a real estate company that treated me like a copy machine. Tessa encouraged me at first. She'd look at my sketches and say they were beautiful. She'd tell her friends her husband was going to be someone important someday. But somewhere along the way, admiration turned to resentment. The smiles became tight. The encouragement became silence. I didn't know it yet, but she was already preparing to leave. The shift started about 8 months before the fire. Small things at first. Tessa stopped asking about my day. When I'd come home excited about a new design concept, she'd nod without looking up from her phone. Then came the comments. "Maybe you should just get a normal job." Or, "My friend Karen's husband manages a whole department. He's only 35. One night, I suggested we watch a documentary about sustainable urban design. She rolled her eyes. "Can we watch something that isn't about your hobby?" "It's not a hobby," I said quietly. "It's my career." Career. She laughed, but it wasn't warm. "You barely make enough to cover groceries, Wesley." She started going out more. Girls' nights that stretched until 2 a.m. weekend trips to visit friends I'd never met. I tried to be supportive, tried to give her space. Maybe she just needed time. But one Thursday night, I came home early from a drafting shift. Tessa was in the bedroom, door half closed, talking on the phone. Her voice was low and tense. "I can't keep waiting for him," she said. "I've wasted enough time already." 3 months later, everything changed. On a Wednesday afternoon, my phone started buzzing. Emails. 5 of them. Interview invitations. 3 architectural firms and 2 urban planning consultancies. All requesting formal interviews within the next 2 weeks. I read each email 4 times, making sure they were real. My hands shook. This was it. The break I'd been working toward for years. Proof that all those unpaid hours, all that sacrifice, hadn't been for nothing. I called Tessa immediately. She was at work. "I got interviews," I said, my voice cracking with emotion. 5 of them. Real positions with actual salaries. Silence on the other end. "Tessa, that's great, Wesley." Her tone was flat. "Listen, I'm busy. We'll talk tonight." She hung up. I spent that night preparing. Printed out the interview letters on our old printer. Updated my portfolio. Pressed my interview shirt. Practiced answers to questions I'd researched online. I barely slept. At sunrise, I laid all 5 letters on the kitchen table in a neat row. Evidence that I was finally becoming someone. I stood there smiling, imagining Tessa's reaction. Then I heard the front door open behind me. "What's all this?" Tessa asked. Her voice had that edge I'd learned to recognize. The one that meant she was already irritated before the conversation started. "The interviews I told you about." "Look." I pointed at the letters, my excitement making me miss the coldness in her eyes. "This one's for an associate position. Starting salary is." "You really think this changes anything?" I stopped. "What do you mean?" She walked to the sink, grabbed the lighter fluid from underneath. My brain couldn't process what was happening fast enough. She swept the papers into the sink with one motion, poured the fluid over them. Tessa stopped. "What are you?" The match flared. She dropped it. Flames erupted, consuming the paper, the ink, the proof of everything I'd worked for. The fire alarm started screaming. Smoke filled the kitchen. I just stood there, numb, disbelieving. My body wouldn't move. Neighbors started pounding on the door. Someone must have seen smoke through the window. Mrs. Patterson from next door burst in with a fire extinguisher. She sprayed white foam everywhere, shouting questions I couldn't answer. Tessa grabbed her bag and walked out through the chaos, stepping over foam and ashes like they were nothing. The shame burned hotter than the flames. The house was quiet after everyone left. Too quiet. I sat on the kitchen floor surrounded by foam and ashes, trying to understand what had just happened. The papers were gone. Black flakes that crumbled when I touched them. I should have called someone. My brother. My sister. Someone who could tell me this wasn't my fault. But I couldn't. Part of me wondered if Tessa was right. Maybe I wasn't worth waiting for. Maybe I'd wasted her time. I cleaned up the mess, threw away the ashes, scrubbed the sink until my hands hurt, opened windows to clear the smoke smell, moved like a robot through all the motions of making the house normal again. But it wasn't normal. She'd taken half the closet. Her toothbrush was gone. The photo of us from our wedding that used to sit on the dresser had been turned face down. I sat on the couch as the sun went down, staring at nothing. My phone was silent. She didn't call, didn't text, just gone. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, an old colleague from my internship days. "Hey, man. Long shot, but we might have something for you. Small drafting work. Pays cash. Interested." I took the job. It wasn't much. Marcus needed someone to draft renovation plans for a small retail space downtown. The pay was $300 for 2 days of work. Barely enough to cover groceries, but it was something. It was purpose. I worked in the corner of a coffee shop because I couldn't stand being in the house. My back ached from hunching over my laptop. I ate $1 menu burgers and drank free refill coffee until my hands shook from caffeine. But the work felt good. Clean lines, precise measurements, solving spatial problems. This I could control. This made sense. Marcus was impressed with how fast I worked. He referred me to someone else. Then someone else. Word spread quietly through the small network of contractors and small business owners. Wesley Grant does good work cheap. I took every job offered. Worked 14-hour days. Fell asleep with my laptop on my chest. Woke up and did it again. One morning, scrolling through social media out of habit, I saw Tessa had posted a photo. Her at some restaurant, smiling with people I didn't recognize. The caption read, "New beginnings. No dead weight." I stared at those words. No dead weight. That's what I'd been to her. Weight she'd finally shed. I closed the app and got back to work. 3 months later, Marcus forwarded me an email. Subject line, Statewide Urban Renewal Design Contest. The state was offering funding for innovative proposals to redesign abandoned industrial districts. Winners would receive grant money and the opportunity to see their designs actually built. First prize was $50,000 and a featured project in the capital. Most people would see it as a long shot, a publicity stunt. But to me, it was a lifeline. A chance to prove that everything I'd learned, everything I'd sacrificed, meant something. The entry deadline was 6 weeks away. Submissions required detailed architectural plans, cost projections, environmental impact assessments, and a written proposal explaining the community benefit. I decided to enter. The problem was materials. Professional rendering software, printing costs, reference books I didn't own. I needed at least $500. My bank account showed $11.37. I sat in that coffee shop, staring at my account balance, feeling the familiar weight of impossibility. This is where most people would quit. Where I should quit. But I'd already lost everything that mattered. What was a little more risk? I picked up my phone and called my older sister, Hannah. Hannah lived 2 hours away with her husband and 3 kids. We'd grown apart over the years, mostly because I'd been too proud to admit when I needed help. She answered on the 3rd ring. Wesley? Everything okay? Yeah. No. I took a breath. I need to borrow money. Just $500. I'll pay you back, I just need... What happened with Tessa? Silence. She knew. Of course she knew. Small family, big gossip network. She left, I said finally. I heard. I wanted to call, but... Hannah sighed. What do you need the money for? I told her about the contest. About the deadline. About how this might be my only real shot at making something of myself. I expected her to tell me I was being foolish, chasing another dead-end dream. Instead, she said, I'll transfer it tonight. But Wesley, yeah, build something that makes you proud. Not something that proves her wrong. Something that makes you proud. The money appeared in my account the next morning. I bought the software, the materials, the reference books. I worked in libraries when the coffee shops closed. On park benches when the weather was good. In 24-hour grocery store cafes when everywhere else shut down. Submission day arrived. I had everything ready. Then my laptop froze. The screen went black. Just stopped. The spinning wheel of death appeared, mocking me. I had 9 minutes before the submission deadline. 9 minutes and my laptop was dead. I wanted to throw it. Wanted to scream. Wanted to punch something. Instead, I closed my eyes and breathed. Counted to 10 like my dad taught me when I was a kid and got frustrated. I forced a restart. Held the power button until it shut down completely. Waited. Pressed it again. The startup chime sounded. The screen lit up. 8 minutes. I opened the submission portal. Uploaded the architectural plans. The server was slow. The progress bar crawled across the screen. 5 minutes. 3 minutes. The proposal document uploaded. The cost analysis. The environmental study. Everything feeding through that slow connection like molasses. 1 minute left. The final confirmation page loaded. I clicked submit. Your submission has been received. Confirmation number 847392. I sat back in my chair and cried. Not from sadness. From release. From months of pressure, finally letting go. I'd done it. Win or lose, I'd finished something. 2 weeks later, I received an email. Subject line, Urban Renewal Contest, finalist notification. Congratulations. You've been selected as one of 12 finalists. Public presentations will be held next month. The presentation room was intimidating. City officials, investors, architects I recognized from magazine articles. 12 finalists, all presenting their proposals in 10-minute slots. I was number 7. I watched the first 6 presenters. They were polished, confident. They had professional slide decks and practice speeches. I had my laptop and my sketchbook and a voice that kept shaking every time I tried to practice. When they called my name, I walked to the front on legs that felt like water. Set up my slides. Looked out at the faces staring back at me. I started talking. My voice cracked on the first sentence. I cleared my throat and tried again. I explained my proposal. Abandoned industrial districts converted into mixed-use spaces. Affordable housing integrated with green spaces and community centers. Sustainable design that honored the history of these neighborhoods while giving them new life. But what I really talked about was second chances. Communities that had been written off, dismissed, forgotten. Places that deserved someone to believe they could be beautiful again. I wasn't just talking about buildings. Everyone in that room knew it. The lead judge, a woman named Ms. Calloway, leaned forward. She raised an eyebrow. Mr. Grant, this is quite ambitious for a first major project. What makes you think you can execute this? I met her eyes. Because I know what it's like to be dismissed. And I know what it takes to rebuild. They announced the winner 3 weeks later. I was at my apartment, which wasn't really an apartment so much as a rented room above a dry cleaner. The email arrived at 6 p.m. Subject line, contest results, congratulations. I read it twice, then 3 times. We are pleased to announce that your proposal has been selected as the first place winner. First place. Not second. Not honorable mention. First. The city wanted to move forward with a pilot project in the Eastern Industrial District. They were allocating the grant money immediately. They wanted to meet next week to discuss timelines. I sat on my bed in that tiny room that smelled like cleaning chemicals and tried to process what this meant. It meant work. Real work. It meant legitimacy. It meant I hadn't been crazy for believing in myself when no one else did. I walked to the corner store and bought a cheap beer. Drank it on the steps outside my building, watching traffic pass. The November air was cold. I didn't care. For the first time in months, I smiled. My phone rang. Construction firms. Consulting companies. People who'd been at the presentation, asking if I was available for contract work. Everything was starting to move. The pilot project broke ground in January. My design was being built. Actually, built. I stood at the construction site on the first day, watching bulldozers tear into old pavement, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Local news covered the groundbreaking. The mayor gave a speech about urban revitalization. They interviewed me. I was terrible on camera, stumbling over my words, but I was honest. I talked about believing in communities that others had given up on. The segment aired that night. My phone exploded with messages. Old classmates. Former professors. People I hadn't heard from in years, all suddenly interested in what I was doing. A local magazine reached out. They wanted to do a feature. The quiet architect changing our city. They sent a photographer to the construction site. Took pictures of me standing in front of the future community center location, holding blueprints. The article ran in March. My photo was on page 12. The story talked about my background, my struggle, my vision. It didn't mention Tessa. I'd asked them not to. More contracts came. Consulting work for other cities looking at similar projects. Speaking invitations. My income went from barely surviving to actually comfortable. Then in April, the city launched a public awareness campaign. They put my photo on a bus stop advertisement near downtown. Just a small image with text, "Building tomorrow's communities today." That's when Tessa saw me. She was riding the number 7 bus. Same route she used to take to her dental office job. It was a Tuesday morning, and she was scrolling through her phone when the bus stopped at 5th and Main. She looked up. My face was on the billboard outside. Not huge, but big enough. Clear enough. The campaign photo showing me at the construction site, confident and focused. Text underneath with my name and the project description. According to what she told me later, she stared at it for a full minute. The bus driver had to ask twice if she was getting off. She walked to work in a daze, pulled out her phone, and searched my name. Articles. Project announcements. Photos from the magazine feature. Awards I'd received. Everything she'd missed because she blocked my number and moved on with her life. That evening, I received a text from an unknown number. "Wesley, it's me. We need to talk." I stared at the message. 3 words that used to have power over me. 3 words that used to make my stomach drop. Now they just felt empty. I didn't respond. Deleted the message and went back to reviewing construction timeline updates. But she wasn't done. She showed up at my apartment 3 days later. I don't know how she got my address. Maybe from mutual friends. Maybe she'd been keeping track all along. I opened the door and there she was. Hairstyled differently. Thinner. Wearing a soft expression I remembered from early in our marriage. The version of Tessa who used to bring me dinner during late study sessions. "Hey," she said quietly. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside and let her in. My apartment was small but clean. Nothing like the house we'd shared, but it was mine. She looked around, taking in the drafting table, the corkboard covered with project sketches. "You've done really well," she said. I saw the billboard. The articles. "Wesley, I'm so proud of you." I said nothing. "I made a mistake," she continued, voice trembling slightly, "leaving the way I did. I was frustrated and scared, and I didn't see what you were building. But I see it now. I see you. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. I was thinking maybe we could try again. Start over. I know it won't be easy, but no, I said. Just that. One word. Clean and final. She blinked. Wesley, I'm trying to apologize. I'm trying to make this right. No, I repeated. I walked to the door and opened it. She stood there, confusion shifting to anger on her face. You can't just. Goodbye, Tessa. She left. But it wasn't over. The text started the next day. First, they were apologetic. Then confused. Then angry. After everything I did for you, I supported you through college. You wouldn't have made it without me. I didn't respond to any of them. Then came the phone calls. I let them all go to voicemail. Her voice messages escalated from sad to furious. You think you're better than me now? You owe me, Wesley. I waited years for you. A week later, I received an email from a lawyer's office. Tessa was filing for a portion of my assets. Her claim argued that we were still legally married when my career began, and therefore she was entitled to half of everything I'd earned. The email included demands, access to my bank accounts, detailed financial records, half of any income from ongoing projects. I sat at my kitchen table, reading the legal letter. Part of me had expected this. The part that knew Tessa never did anything without calculating what she'd get from it. I called the lawyer I'd consulted months earlier. A sharp woman named Ms. Pierce who'd helped me navigate the initial separation. She's claiming marital asset rights, I explained. Ms. Pierce was quiet for a moment. Wesley, we prepared for this. Remember? You documented everything. I had. Every text message. Every bank withdrawal Tessa made before leaving. Every receipt. The date she abandoned the marriage. I kept it all, not for revenge, but for survival. Forward me her lawyer's letter, Miss Pierce said. Let's show them what they're actually dealing with. What Tessa didn't know was that I'd been documenting our marriage's collapse from the moment I sensed something was wrong. Not because I wanted ammunition. Because I needed to protect myself. I had screenshots of her messages saying she was done waiting. Bank records showing she drained our joint savings account 2 weeks before she left. Credit card statements for charges she'd made on my card without asking, running up thousands in debt right before walking out. I had the police report from the day she'd burned my appointment letters. Mrs. Patterson, our neighbor, had insisted on filing one. At the time, I'd been embarrassed. Now I was grateful. I had text messages from her friends, accidentally included in group chats, discussing how Tessa was planning to leave once she got her finances in order. Most importantly, I had the date. The exact date she abandoned our marriage. Not legally divorced yet, but clearly, definitively gone. Ms. Pierce compiled everything into a response file. It was thorough, detailed, and devastating. She forwarded it to Tessa's lawyer with a simple cover letter. Your client abandoned the marriage, liquidated joint assets, and caused property damage before leaving. Mr. Grant owes nothing. Please review the attached documentation. Tessa's lawyer went quiet for 3 days. Then they requested a court hearing. They want to argue their case in front of a judge, Ms. Pierce told me. Are you ready for this? Yes, I said. Because I was. The courthouse was cold, sterile. The kind of place where emotions went to die under fluorescent lighting and legal procedure. Tessa arrived in a navy dress, looking smaller than I remembered. Her lawyer was a middle-aged man in an expensive suit who kept checking his phone. They sat on one side of the room. Ms. Pierce and I sat on the other. The judge was a woman in her 60s with tired eyes and silver hair pulled back tight. She'd seen everything. Nothing we said would surprise her. Tessa's lawyer went first. He painted a picture of a supportive wife who'd stood by her husband through years of struggle, who'd worked to support them while Wesley pursued his dreams, who deserved to share in the success she'd helped make possible. He made me sound like I'd abandoned her the moment I found success, left her behind after she'd sacrificed her own opportunities. It was a good story. If you didn't know the truth, you'd believe it. Then Ms. Pierce stood up. She methodically presented the documentation, the text messages, the bank records, the neighbor's testimony about the burned letters, the date of abandonment, the debt Tessa had created right before leaving. She showed the timeline clearly. Tessa left when Wesley had nothing. She returned when he had something. Tessa's face changed as Ms. Pierce spoke. Confident shifted to worried. Worried shifted to pale. The judge made notes. Asked questions. Looked directly at Tessa when asking about the burn appointment letters. Did you destroy your husband's job opportunity documents? Tessa hesitated. I was emotional. I didn't. Yes or no, please? Yes. The judge made another note. Decision will be delivered in writing within 2 weeks. The waiting was brutal. 2 weeks of trying to focus on work while wondering if everything I'd built could be taken away. The Eastern Industrial Project was progressing ahead of schedule. The community center structure was up. Local residents were excited. News crews kept coming back to do follow-up stories. I stood at the construction site one morning, watching excavators prepare the ground for the green space portion of the design, tearing up old concrete to make room for something new. The metaphor wasn't lost on me. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mr. Grant? This is Thomas Brennan from the State Architectural Commission. We've been following your work on the Eastern District project. He explained that they were planning a statewide initiative, multiple cities, focused on sustainable urban renewal. They wanted to know if I'd be interested in consulting. The contract he described would triple my current income, make me financially secure for years. We'd need an answer within the week, he said. But we think you're the right person for this. I told him I'd think about it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Everything was moving so fast. A year ago, I'd been burning alive in my own kitchen. Now opportunity was arriving faster than I could process. Then the email arrived. Subject line, court decision, Grant versus Grant. I opened it. Read it 3 times. The judge had ruled. Tessa got nothing. Not half. Not a percentage. Nothing. The ruling stated clearly, she'd abandoned the marriage when the defendant had no significant assets. She'd destroyed his professional opportunities. She'd liquidated joint accounts before leaving. She returned only when his financial situation improved. The judge found her claims opportunistic and without merit. More than that, Tessa was held responsible for the credit card debt she'd created in my name before leaving. $7,800 she now had to pay back. Ms. Pierce called me after I'd read the decision 4 times. How do you feel? She asked. Numb, I said honestly. I thought I'd feel. I don't know. Something bigger. That's normal. This isn't really victory. It's just protection. She was right. I hadn't won anything. I just kept what was mine. According to Ms. Pierce, Tessa's situation had gotten worse. She'd lost her apartment. The man she'd left me for had left her. She was living with her sister, working part-time at a call center. I didn't feel happy about it. I just felt sad. Not for me. For both of us. For how badly we'd failed each other. 2 days later, the mayor's office called. They wanted to discuss expanding my role in the city's long-term development plans. Life kept moving forward, whether I was ready or not. The city launched a regional campaign in late summer. Building Tomorrow's Communities was the slogan. They featured the Eastern District project prominently, showing before and after images of the neighborhood transformation. My face was everywhere. Bus stops, brochures, a billboard on the highway. Not because I wanted attention, but because I'd become the face of what was possible. I stood in front of one of the billboards one morning. Just me, alone, looking up at my own image. The photo showed me at a construction site, focused and confident. I barely recognized myself. A year ago, I'd been invisible, dismissible, dead weight. Now I was on billboards. It didn't feel triumphant. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life from outside. My phone buzzed. Text from Hannah. Saw your face on a billboard by the mall. Mom and Dad would be so proud. Our parents had died when I was in my 20s. Car accident. Sometimes I still wanted to call them, tell them about what I was building, hear them say they knew I could do it. I was lost in that thought when someone called my name. I turned around. Tessa stood 20 feet away. She looked different. Thinner, like I'd noticed before, but more than that. Tired. worn down by life in a way I recognize because I've been there. "Wesley," she said quietly. I didn't run. Didn't tell her to leave. Just stood there waiting. She walked closer, stopped a few feet away. I saw the ruling. "I'm not here about that." "Okay." I wanted to say, "I didn't know you were hurting too. Back then, I thought you were just failing, just not trying hard enough. I didn't see that you were actually in pain." I nodded. It was probably the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. "We were both broken," I said finally. "But you walked away. I rebuilt." She wiped her eyes. "I know. And I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know that I see it now. What I did, what I destroyed." We stood there in silence. Cars passed. Life continued around us. "I hope things get better for you," I said. And I meant it. She nodded, smiled weakly. "I hope you build everything you dreamed of." Then she walked away. Just turned and left, disappearing into the city crowd. I watched her go. Felt something release inside me. Not anger, not resentment. Just letting go. I turned back to the billboard. My face looking down, steady and sure. Then I walked away, too. Didn't look back. 6 months later, the Eastern District project held its grand opening. The community center was finished. The green spaces were planted. Affordable housing units were occupied. The whole neighborhood had transformed from abandoned industrial ruins into a thriving community. I stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, surrounded by city officials and residents and construction workers who'd made it real. The mayor gave a speech. Local kids played in the new park. Families explored the community center. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, ran up to me. "Are you the man who built this?" "I helped design it," I said. "A lot of people built it. It's really pretty," she said, then ran back to her parents. I watched her go. Watched families moving through spaces I'd imagined on paper. Watched elderly residents sitting on benches I'd drawn. Watched teenagers playing basketball on courts I'd planned. This was the point. Not revenge. Not proving Tessa wrong. Building something that mattered. Creating spaces where people could rebuild their lives like I'd rebuilt mine. A news reporter approached me. Young guy with a microphone and camera operator. "Mr. Grant, quick question for the evening news. What drives you? What motivates this work?" I thought about it. About the kitchen fire. About sleeping in a room above a dry cleaner. About Hannah's loan and Ms. Pierce's protection and every person who'd helped me survive. Second chances, I said. Everyone deserves them. Places and people both. The State Architectural Commission project launched in the fall. Multiple cities, multiple designs, all focused on sustainable urban renewal and community rebuilding. I led the consulting team. It meant travel, long meetings, complicated negotiations with local governments. It meant managing a staff of young architects who reminded me of myself 10 years ago, full of hope and talent and impatience. I hired 3 of them from my old community college program. Gave them opportunities I'd had to fight for. My income was stable now. More than stable. I moved into a better apartment. Not fancy, but mine. Clean and bright with space for a proper drafting table. I called Hannah every week. Visited her family once a month. Her kids call me Uncle Wes the Builder. They wanted me to design them a treehouse. I started dating someone I met at a community board meeting. Her name was Angela, and she ran a nonprofit focused on affordable housing advocacy. She was smart, kind, and completely unimpressed by billboards. Life wasn't perfect. Some days I still thought about Tessa, about the fire, about how close I'd come to giving up. But mostly I thought about what came next. The next project, the next community, the next chance to build something beautiful from ruins. One morning, driving to a construction site, I passed another billboard. My face again, this time for the statewide campaign launch. I smiled and kept driving. The billboard stood 30 feet tall at the intersection of Commerce and Fifth. My face, larger than life, looking out over the city. The photo was professional, taken during the Eastern District project. I looked confident, focused, alive. I parked across the street one evening and just sat there, looking up at it. Not from pride, but from disbelief. How did I get here? From burning appointment letters to this? My phone rang. Angela. Where are you? She asked. Dinner's getting cold. Sorry. Got distracted. I'll be there in 10 minutes. You're staring at your billboard again, are you? I laughed. Maybe. Wesley Grant, you're ridiculous. Get home. I hung up, took one last look at the billboard. The man in that photo had survived. Had taken every piece of wreckage from his old life and built something new. Not for revenge, not to prove anyone wrong. For himself. I used to think I needed someone to believe in me. Tessa, my professors, employers, anyone. I chased that validation like it would save me. Turns out, I just needed to believe in myself. The city lights started coming on as the sun set. All around me, people were heading home, living their lives, pursuing their own rebuilds. The world kept turning, indifferent to my success or failure. But I turned with it. Survived. Rebuilt. Become someone I could be proud of. I started the car and drove home. Not to the house I'd lost or the room I'd survived in. To a life I'd built myself, piece by piece from ashes. The billboards stayed behind me, glowing in the dusk, and I kept moving forward.